do try to join as many as I can, but it always seems on Saturdays we always got something else going on. So,
well, that's the unfortunate reality of research lodges and every other esoteric. Well, I'll say every other boutique Masonic body. We all seem to want to meet on Saturdays. So
nothing wrong with the word esoteric.
that's right. Well, esoteric, but that's not exclusive to us. More boutique. There he is, my lovely co-host Brian. Good afternoon, Brian.
Good afternoon, Chris. How are you?
I'm good. I'm here.
So,
I thought I'd.
sorry, mate. You're sorry, you're about to say?
Oh yeah, I thought I'd go ahead and wear my new master's hat. I've never worn a hat in a Zoom meeting, but like, what the hell, might as well. I had to buy a new hat for going in the East, so I thought, why not?
Oh, wow.
Let's start off the year and show off my new hat. Yeah, I made it my profile pic. It's pretty cool.
I thought you were wearing it because your roof was leaking, but there you go.
Yes, that's it too. Yes. Well, fortunately, it'll flood my son's room before we get down to here, but I'll be all right.
Okay.
You'll have trouble, but I'll be. Yeah, it occurred to me, it's like nobody wears hats anymore. I mean, it's like I wore mine to the annual at my lodge, even though I wasn't going to be sitting in the East, but it gave me a chance to get a good pic with a cigar outside afterwards. So I did that, but it's like we don't wear hats to lodge. Very few men wear hats out and about anymore, and it's like you buy a nice hat, you want to wear it. I mean, I really only going to wear it like 4 or 5 times as master this year, but might get a little more use out of it. I don't know. Oh, is that customary? So in England, is that customary that just the master wears a hat?
No one wears a hat.
No one wears a hat. See. So nothing. Okay. Do you know about the rest of Europe?
I think Europe, the majority of Europe, I don't think anyone wears a hat. There are some orders where hats are sort of part of their uniform, if you like, but
like Scottish Rite, we have the caps. Okay. Well, it's very much an American thing, and I like it. I actually wrote a paper on the origins of hats because in the installation service, which I do. You present the master with a hat, and you talk about King Solomon wore a crown as a symbol of his dignity and authority, and kings have taken that on, and it symbolizes the authority of his and distinguishes him from the rest of the craft. It's a great little speech. So I went and wrote a nice 5-page paper on the origins of crowns. I went and looked at the Egyptians, and I found there's northern and southern Egypt both have crowns that they wore, and biblical crowns. And what's funny is they talk about crowns a whole lot in the Bible, but they never talk about Solomon wearing one. So it's all these other people. It makes you think, oh yeah, if you look in the Bible, it talks all about Solomon wearing his crown. No, it never does. But it mentions a whole bunch of other kings and such. And I have a little bit about high priests and the Pope and all this. It's a good little talk. It was a lot of fun doing that. A friend of mine was in the East, and I wrote it for him I wanted something different. And I've given it a few times since then, but it's a fun little story. But I learned a little bit more about crowns and all that. But I think it's a nice tradition. But why it's just an American one, I don't know.
In our past master degree, we talk about St. Solomon wearing a crown as an emblem of authority. Therefore, all masters should be wearing a hat to symbolize that same.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like word for word in Virginia, at least. The installation ceremony for the master is almost word for word what we do in the past master's degree. And it's when I learned one, I was learning the other. It's like in the past master's degree, you don't put the part about attending Grand Lodge and Grand Annual Communications, but all the other things about being a good citizen and avoiding, private peaks and quarrels, all of that's included in the past master's degree. So it's very, very similar. I'm curious as to other jurisdictions. So what state are you in, Jason?
I'm in Ohio.
Ohio? Okay. Well, I'm curious as to how much Royal Arch varies among the different jurisdictions, especially since there is a general grand chapter of Royal Arch in America, and Virginia is not a member. So I just wonder how much the ritual is similar And if in your installation ceremony for the Blue Lodge, do they give the hat to the master and put it on him?
Yeah, the master is given the hat before he sat down using the two gib lights.
Now, I'm talking about in the Blue Lodge in the installation.
In installation, yeah, they are given the hat. It's
And
generally one of the ones that gets passed down or whatever. I bought my own for that, but
yeah, but I mean,
they're given a hat. They're given
and the gavel. But I'm saying, do they say the same sort of thing about Solomon in your installation?
They recite parts of the past master. We have a past master convocation that all worshipful elect have to go to before they get installed.
Right.
And then actually at the installation, yes, they do talk about the hat and the gavel, and then they're sat down using the grip.
Let me ask you this. In order to be master of a lodge, do you have to have that past master's you what did you call it?
We have what they call a past master convocation. You don't necessarily have to join chapter and have the past master degree.
Right.
But the past master convocation, essentially we go over the past master degree. But
I know. I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
The large chapter is very picky about how much we actually do. We can't actually perform the past master degree without them being chapter members.
Correct. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me go ahead and add
we get a brief synapse
Brian as a co-host.
Thank you very much.
We get a brief synapse of what it is, but
right. Well, so let me add, because we're the same in Virginia, but do you have to have the past master's degree to be installed as master, or is there a requirement when you have to get it when you're moving towards the east?
No, just you have to attend the convocation.
Okay, but I mean, what's the latest you can do that? Is what I'm saying. Do you have to have it the night you're installed, or?
You have to have. There's a form that you fill out when you go to the convocation. It's a form 50, some kind of form 52 that certifies that you have received the past master degree, and it's in the sense whatever you've gone to the convocation and you're eligible to be installed. If you don't go to that, or if you've not received the past master degree itself in chapter, you are not eligible to be installed.
I totally get that. Maybe you're missing my question. Oh, let me put it this way: in Virginia, you can't be elected junior warden unless you've received the past master's degree. So long before you get to the east, you have to have had that degree. That's what I was getting at. And you're saying they can literally get it the day before they're installed master. There's not an early requirement. Okay. I think I need to do a paper on past master's degree because it seems to vary so much. And it's a fascinating thing. Good morning, everybody else joining while we're rambling here. Kurt, good to see you. Brother Matt Parker, my speaker is here, so I feel better already. That's the number one concern is your speaker. And John Martin is here. Good to see you, Brother John.
Oh, good morning.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm awake.
Right. That's all we asked. Brother Cam, good to have you with us.
Good morning. I'll change the name momentarily.
All right, appreciate it. Yeah, I sign in on things all the time. It's like, wait, no, that was it. Or my wife had to sign in on some meeting and I guess switch it back to me. So anyway, it is what it is. Hey, Brother Paul, good to see you here.
Good morning.
Good to have you with us. So it's after 10 o'clock. I'm going to do my thing. Welcome, everyone, to the first Zoom meeting of 2025, the first unstated meeting of Virginia Research Lodge number 1777 out of Highland Springs, Virginia. My name is Chris Douglas. I am your genial host, and I'm pleased to say I am the worshipful master this year of Virginia Research Lodge, the first of, I don't know how long a term. We shall see. But it's great to be in 2025. I wore my hat. Just why not? I bought the new hat for... I have a hat, kind of a cowboy hat, kind of a Stevie Ray Vaughan kind of flat cowboy hat. You've seen those, the ones with the cut-off brim, not the whole 10-gallon. I wore that for years when I was master the first two times, And I thought after 30 years, I'm entitled to buy a new hat to be master. So this is my brand new chapeau for the Research Lodge. And I thought I'll wear it to the Zoom meeting. Just why not? Anyway, so that's that. I am so glad to see everybody here. I hope you all had a great Christmas and New Year's and all of that stuff. Matt was going to be our last speaker. I think it was it October or November? When did I cancel on you?
Yeah, I think it was November, if I'm memory serves.
Yep, I had something come up and I just was not able to host and I had to bail and I felt terrible, but I made sure I brought Matt back for my first one. Now I'll admit this to y'all. Last year in December, sometime before Christmas, I spent a weekend reaching out to Matt and a bunch of other people, and I lined up all my speakers for 2024 all in one weekend, and I was locked in. I think we had I'll have to count, I had 16 or 18 Zoom meetings last year. And now it's the middle of January, and I have one scheduled. That's it. On the horn. I expect to be traveling more this year, being master, so it's a lot to put these unstateds together, and if you're not doing anything else, it's cool. But I think I had quite a brisk pace last year, trying to have at least 2 every month, and it's quite a bit of work. So I'm scaling back this year. I will likely have at least 1 a month, I think, this year, and I'll try to visit more of the research lodges myself. So we'll see what happens, but there's always the opportunity to throw some more in, but I need to get cracking on lining people up. So, any brother have anything they want to say? Any announcements or just hi before we go to our speaker?
Good morning from Buffalo, New York.
Oh, hey, good to see you, Ken. Appreciate you joining us.
Here.
On I think that we had in last year, you had asked me if there was a research lodge in Quebec.
Yes.
Canada. And we did get a communication that there is one that was recently created, just an FYI.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
If ever you want to visit that lodge, you're more than welcome.
Awesome. So how many lodges in Quebec? Roughly.
That's a good question. I would say, I don't know, more than 200.
Okay.
For sure more than 200, but I don't know the exact number.
There's, I'm just guessing, 7 provinces in Canada? Is that right?
10.
Or how
10.
many? 10? Does each one have a Grand Lodge?
I know that Quebec for sure has a Grand Lodge. We have the Grand Lodge of Quebec. The other ones, I believe they each have their own Grand Lodge.
Okay.
But I'm not 100%.
I might have seen a couple of the smaller ones might have a joint 2 provinces. Of course, in the U.S., all 50 states have a state Grand Lodge, and 33 or 6 have Prince Hall Grand Lodges. But do you have a body for the Grand Lodge of Canada? How does that work? Are you a separate thing for Canada, or is every province just like us, like you're Quebec and that's it? There's nobody above you.
Yeah, I know that the Grand Lodge of Quebec that's it. Like there's nothing above the Grand Lodge of Quebec.
Okay.
But I don't know about the other provinces.
Yeah,
All
it's
right.
the same with the other provinces.
Okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Okay. Because I remember reading something about Grand Lodge of Canada, but I don't think I've actually found a Grand Lodge. I found individual ones. And I imagine some of y'all were, because was Canada populated around the same, like America, the Grand Lodges formed right after the Revolutionary War. So like the 1770s, 80s is when all the colonies broke off, became their own Grand Lodges. Do you know, were you all under the Grand Lodge of England for some time? Do you happen to know that? Or if you were ever...
I believe that there were, just like in the colonies, the provincial Grand Lodges, which like when we talk about the colonies, there were more than 13 colonies. Some of them were Canada, right?
Oh, that's true.
So,
well, yeah. From our perspective,
we don't think of it that way, right?
Yeah.
So when you say America, America is not the United States. America is North America. So, they were sprinkled with regimental lodges that were mobile, and
right.
they were also sprinkled with lodges that had charters from Scotland, Ireland, and the Premier Grand Lodge of England at the time.
Right. Okay.
So they had multiple charters from different jurisdictions. In the provincial Grand Lodges, meaning provincial, mean the regions of the various colonies, then broke off over time in all different patterns into the individual provinces and states.
Okay, so very similar to
about the
us. Okay,
Yeah.
that's
But-
kind of what I figured.
So,
But what's interesting is the
Matt.
Grand Lodge of, well, the Grand Lodge of Canada in Ontario. The reason why they call themselves the Grand Lodge of Canada was because they were the first Grand Lodge formed in Canada. Because they were the first, they were like, hey, we're the Grand Lodge of Canada. But then all of the other provinces started forming their own Grand Lodge. So they retained the name Grand Lodge of Canada, but now they're the Grand Lodge of Canada in Ontario. So I joke with our Ontario brothers, and I call them the Grand Lodge of Canada in exile in Ontario.
I love
I'm
it.
glad you're laughing. They don't laugh at that. I think it's hilarious.
It's to me. I mean, this is one of the things, as research nerds, what do you want to call us? We love all this minutia like this. I'm fascinated by how Grand Lodges form, and it's always an opportunity when I want to invest the time to write another paper exploring all these different things. There's a wealth of stuff out there if you want to write a research paper, and it's worth digging into because you learn all these little things, and then half the time it's like, oh, well, there's 3 other papers I can write based on what I uncovered in this paper. I'll set that aside and come back and write a paper later about some other thing. But it's interesting in America, in North America, the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts was the first provincial Grand Lodge in North America. The Grand Lodge of Virginia was the first Grand Lodge that actually broke away, and we were never a provincial Grand Lodge under England. So technically, Massachusetts is older as a Grand Lodge, but as a provincial Grand Lodge. So we were technically, Virginia's their first Grand Lodge that actually broke away from England, Scotland, Ireland, formed our own body. So we're technically the oldest. Massachusetts followed a few years later.
I think Massachusetts, but the provincial Grand Lodge covered more than just Massachusetts.
Yeah, I believe so.
There was, and I think it was divided by the companies. In other words, you had the Virginia Company and you had the New England Company. We're going back horse to the 1600s now, right?
Right.
Before Masonry came into America, but when it did, I think it followed along those lines. But I think the Dutch colonies, which is basically Manhattan and New York State, that became, and parts of Pennsylvania, that I think ended up being part of the New England Company's territory. That again, it kind of morphed along with the states that we know today didn't really exist, right?
Right.
The states were I mean, like I want to say that either New Hampshire or Vermont was part of another state and so forth. They were divided differently. So there were I want to say that there were 2 provincial Grand Lodge, 2 main ones, one of which eventually most of that became Massachusetts, what you're referring to.
Yeah.
But to say that the Massachusetts was the provincial Grand Lodge is not quite accurate, I don't think.
Right.
But
there's claim that they were the first Grand Lodge is only correct in the sense they were a provincial Grand Lodge at some point. Whereas Virginia was the first new Grand Lodge that was independent of everybody else.
They're claiming continuity, right?
Yes, basically. It's kind of like the oldest continuing building.
After the Revolution, I forgot. I think it was actually New York. The person who had the charter for the because it became New York had its own Grand Lodge. Well, and that's not really true either. It's too complicated. There was a charter for a provincial or a state Grand Lodge that after the Revolution, the person who had it was a royalist, a loyalist, and so he literally took the charter and went to Canada.
Right.
Yeah, I want to say I don't remember which charter it was. I think it might have been. I can't remember. But it was somewhere right around in New England. There was one of the New England charters was physically taken with the guy up into Canada, and after losing the revolution.
Matt, let me ask you: do you have a presentation? Do you need to share?
I do.
Okay, one sec. Let me turn that on. Always forget to ask about that. Okay, Matt, if you want to go ahead and start, I'll go ahead and introduce you.
Brothers.
give your, this is Matt Parker. He is awesome. There, I introduced him.
There you go.
Take
Best
it away.
introduction ever. I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm going to try to share my screen. Number one, this is the first time I've given this presentation, but it's been something that's been rattling around in my head for quite a while. And when Worship Brother Chris asked me to speak, I thought, oh, this is a great opportunity to present this. The other issue is I'm not really a tech-savvy person. If it's not practical, like in a lodge with a screen, I usually don't do too well with that. So I'm going to try to, hopefully the video will work. Hopefully the audio will work. Going to talk about two things. We've probably all heard the Allegory of Plato's Cave, or we've heard it ad nauseum. We've also probably heard of the hero's journey, Dr. Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. So we hear about these two things, but do we ever hear about these two things together? And for some reason in my head, the two just kept bumping into each other. There was something there. And so I really had to flesh this thing out. So rather than sit here and tell you and describe the Allegory of Plato's Cave and describe the hero's journey, we could be here all day with me trying to explain that. I found two short videos on YouTube that could explain it much better than I can. So what I'm going to do is show those two videos. Then we can discuss the commonality between the two concepts and then apply that towards Masonry. How's that sound? All right.
That sounds great.
All right. Let's see if this will work.
You know how to do the share?
I know how to do the share.
Okay.
I apologize. I'm suffering with a sinus infection. My voice is cracking, so I sound like a 13-year-old. So bear with me.
Yeah, that's good.
Imagine prisoners that have spent their entire lives chained deep inside a cave. They have been chained so that they cannot see behind themselves, and they are forced to stare endlessly at the cave wall in front of them.
Is there sound, Matt? We lost the sound. Matt, you're muted.
Not recognize their old friend.
I apologize. Were you able to hear the sound from the video?
Until you muted yourself.
Oh my goodness! I am so sorry.
Yeah, if you back
It's a
up,
short
let-
video. Let's try
let-
that again. I was
Yeah,
trying
just take it
to,
from the beginning.
avoid
That's
hearing.
fine.
All right, let's try this. Here we go.
Imagine prisoners that have spent their entire lives chained deep inside a cave. They have been chained so that they cannot see behind themselves, and they are forced to stare endlessly at the cave wall in front of them. Behind them, a fire is burning, and between the prisoners and the fire is a raised walkway. Now imagine that each day a menagerie of objects crosses the walkway. Animals, and people carrying their wares to market. Their shapes create an intricate shadow play on the wall in front of the prisoners. This is the only world that the prisoners have ever known. Shadows and the echoes of unseen objects. Now, imagine that the prisoner is released. After some time adjusting to the blinding light, the freed prisoner will begin to experience the world outside of the cave for the very first time. And it is like nothing he could have ever imagined. The perception of the world, the man will of course want to return to his friends to share his incredible discoveries. But the prisoners cannot recognize their old friend. He appears as all things do. His voice is a distorted echo, and his body is a grotesque shadow. They cannot understand his fantastic stories of the world outside of the cave. To them, it will never exist. This, of course, does not make the world outside of the cave any less real.
Okay. So that was the first video. And I think we're all very familiar with the Allegory of Plato's Cave. And there's a little more to it, but for our purposes, I think that video really sold that point there. So let me pull up the second video. Because again, we're going to watch them back to back, and then we're going to talk about this Masonically. How does this work? This video is just a little bit longer, not by much.
Katniss Everdeen and Frodo.
Let's see. I think I need to figure out how to. Am I still sharing, Chris?
Yes, you are.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
What do Harry Potter, Katniss Everdeen, and Frodo all have in common with the heroes of ancient myths? What if I told you they are all variants of the same hero? Do you believe that? Joseph Campbell did. He studied myths from all over the world and published a book called The Hero with 1,000 Faces, retelling dozens of stories and explaining how each represents the monomyth or hero's journey. So, what is the hero's journey? Think of it as a cycle. The journey begins and ends in the hero's ordinary world, but the quest passes through an unfamiliar, special world. Along the way, there are some key events. Think about your favorite book or movie. Does it follow this pattern? Status quo, that's where we start. 1 o'clock, call to adventure. The hero receives a mysterious message, an invitation, a challenge. 2 o'clock, assistance. The hero needs some help, probably from someone older, wiser. 3 o'clock, departure. The hero crosses the threshold from his normal, safe home and enters the special world and adventure. We're not in Kansas anymore. 4 o'clock, trials. Being a hero is hard work. Our hero solves a riddle, slays a monster, escapes from a trap. 5 o'clock, approach. It's time to face the biggest ordeal, the hero's worst fear. 6 o'clock, crisis. This is the hero's darkest hour. He faces death and possibly even dies, only to be reborn. 7 o'clock, treasure. As a result, the hero claims some treasure, special recognition, or power. 8 o'clock, result. This can vary between stories. Do the monsters bow down before the hero, or do they chase him as he flees from the special world? 9 o'clock, return. After all that adventure, the hero returns to his ordinary world. 10 o'clock, new life. This quest has changed the hero. He has outgrown his old life. 11 o'clock, resolution. All the tangled plot lines get straightened out. 12 o'clock, status quo, but upgraded to a new level. Nothing is quite the same once you're a hero. Many popular books and movies follow this ancient formula pretty closely, but let's see how well The Hunger Games fits the hero's journey template. When does Katniss Everdeen hear a call to adventure that gets the story moving? When her sister's name is called from the lottery. How about assistance? Is anyone going to help her on her adventure? Haymitch. What about departure? Does she leave her ordinary world? She gets on a train to the capital. Okay, so you get the idea. What do you have in common with Harry Potter, Katniss Everdeen, and Frodo?
All right. So two very quick videos just to, I think they could capture the essence of Plato's cave and the hero's journey much more concisely than what I could do. But observing that, and here's where I want you to unmute yourselves because I want to hear from you before I really dive into it. I'm happy to share with you my thoughts. And like I said, this is something that's been rattling around in my head for a while now, and I'm still trying to piece together all the parts. But what do you see first, before you bring Masonry into it, what do you see as being commonalities between Plato's cave and the hero's journey?
Well, the character in Plato's cave escapes to a magical different realm from where he starts from.
Sure.
And he is totally changed when he comes back. So it does kind of follow the same track.
Well, it does. And when we look at it historically, every work of fiction or stories, they all follow the same hero's journey pattern. Whether we look back at ancient Greek mythology, we look at the plays or poems of Homer, we look at Shakespeare, all the way throughout history. Even look, what was that big movie that came out in 1977 that everybody went crazy about?
Star Wars.
Star Wars? Yeah, I'm a Trekkie, sorry. But that followed the hero's journey perfectly. And so it's a pattern that's repeated over and over and over. Now, what do two things have in common? It's the change in perspective. So our hero, or the little claymation guy in Plato's cave, he emerges, he sees the light, he sees the world for what it is. Can he ever go back to being the person he was prior?
No.
He can't. He just can't. Now he has this new revelation of what the world really is, what is really going on around him. He can never go back. Same thing with the hero's journey. They start off in their ordinary place. And we all do this. We just start off in a place that we're comfortable with, or that's what our status quo, our daily life is. But once we've experienced some kind of adventure or some kind of calling or some kind of enlightenment where we see things or we feel different in a way that we can never return back to. We'll never be the same. Even if we return back to the place where we started, and I like how Campbell uses the allegory of the clock. You can return back to 12 o'clock, but it's not the same 12 o'clock. You're different. You can never go back to being that person. Those are two very powerful allegories that have a lot of bleed over. So when Plato comes up with the category of his cave, really it's nothing new. He's just laying out concepts that have really been structured into these stories. Now let's look at our own lives. Each of us go through these cycles of the hero's journey. Each of us come out of our cave from time to time and experience new enlightenment. And we can never go back to being the person we were.
I think if I could say one thing, in Plato's cave, well, in all of the regular epic stories, the people are aware of this thing happening, and he leaves reality, the hero, and goes somewhere different. Could be a magical realm, could be another country, but he goes away from everyone else, and he comes back to normality at the end. Whereas Plato's cave, he actually goes to reality. They're all living in an illusion. They have no awareness whatsoever of the real world.
Don't we all do that to an extent?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, you're right with the hero's cave, the going off into this fictional land or this alternate reality or the Marvel multiverse, whatever it might be. Those are just allegories of us taking a step into maybe a different part of reality that we were not aware of, becoming aware of something we didn't know before. Thank goodness for Google and Wikipedia. We can learn new things all the time. And hey, it might actually be right. Not often, but it could, right? And these are things that once you learn these things, you're like, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know giraffes can't swim.
Huh.
One of those weird things, they're the only land mammal that naturally can't swim. That and me. So we learn things, and we can never go back from being those things. And that's what the two allegories are both teaching us. And they're both a different way, different concept, but they're really getting at the same point. We go through that, hopefully, through our lives. We learn. And unfortunately, we know people who they're so closed-minded. They refuse to learn. They refuse to grow. They refuse to be anything more or aspire to be anything more than what they are. And that's a sad existence.
You mean the earth isn't flat?
We'll talk about that later. Could be. Yeah, the earth is not flat. The earth really does rotate around the sun. Sorry, I hate to break it to you. There's just a lot of things that we don't understand. We can't assume that we will ever understand everything in our whole lives. So in a way, are we really always living in reality? We're living in the reality our mind creates for us to protect ourselves in a way. That's where the ego comes in to help protect us. And that's what we perceive as reality. Again, Plato's cave. What we perceive as reality and what reality really is can be two different things. Sometimes we are safer in our perceived reality because the reality we're not aware of could be more dangerous and cause more harm in certain situations, right? But we have to look at this in a way where it's cyclical. That's where the hero's journey comes in. We go through these cycles in life. Each one of us do that, and we can even break our day down into cycles. When I wake up in the morning, oh, here goes my journey. I have my coffee. I'm good. I haven't killed anyone yet. Coffee's kicking in. We're okay. I get to work, and then there's a whole new hell that I have to deal with there. And I don't know what is going to happen there. And I'm going to learn new things every day. I'm going to encounter new people every day. I'm going to encounter people. If you work with the public, you're going to encounter people who are going to assist you in your journey. You're going to encounter people that are going to be combative. They're going to be your enemies, and you've got to overcome them. I work in a law office, in a law firm. Trust me, I deal with this every day. I have certain people on my side that are there to assist me, and I have people that I have to just overcome this obstacle, find a way to defeat this person to get the best outcome for our clients. I go through a hero's journey every day, and I learn new things every day. Now, let's talk about this Masonically. This is where it gets interesting. Masonically. And I don't know if we have any entered apprentices or fellowcraft or anyone on here, so I'm going to try not to delve too deeply into the Master Mason degree. We may touch on it just a bit, but I'm not going to give away too much of the good stuff. But would anyone like to maybe describe your observations as it applies to Masonry, and specifically the 3 degrees of Masonry? Okay. I'll tell you my thought on that. Entered apprentice degree. When we first knock on that door of that lodge, before we're ever really even admitted, we're standing outside in this preparation room waiting to be admitted into the lodge. That's our status quo. we're still the same person we always were. Once we cross that threshold into the lodge, we've committed ourselves to a journey. We follow through with that journey. We meet brothers along the way, or the officers of the lodge in this case. We start out with a brother that guides us through the lodge. In North Carolina and Virginia, that would be our senior deacons. In some jurisdictions, they might have a marshal. But you have a brother that's your guide. That's your Yoda, right? You follow him around. You meet brothers who give you information, give you wisdom, give you enlightenment that's going to help you on your journey. And you're going through this cycle or on this journey through your degrees. And then you hit the Master Mason degree. Things change. It's very different. If we're looking at Joseph Campbell's clock, we'd be at about 9 o'clock here. Things are very different. They feel different. It's designed to be different. And now everything's been going along so good. You've been meeting people along the way. You've been getting information. You've been getting enlightenment. You hear these great lectures, and little sparks are starting to go off in your head and little lights, and you're starting to kind of piece things together. And suddenly everything you thought you knew changes. And you all know what happens next. After that point, are you the same? If the degree is done correctly, it should leave that lasting impact, lasting impression on you, and you can never go back. You can never be the same. You've accomplished two things. Number one, you have crawled out of your cave and you've seen a light, an experience, a revelation that you've never seen before. Hopefully something within yourself. Second, you've just completed a journey with starting out with the person you are, going around that clock, and then ending up as someone new, someone transformed, someone changed by the experience and the journey you've just gone on. You've met brothers that will be your brothers for a lifetime. You've made lifelong friends. But more importantly, you've learned something about yourself. You've learned something about your relationship with the world around you. You've realized that what you thought those images were in the cave of your mind were illusions. A lot of those illusions are put there by the ego to protect us. It serves a purpose. It's there to protect us. But we start to see that who we are or who we thought we were is maybe not who we really are. And maybe we are all works in progress. Maybe we are still working on that journey. So our personal hero's journey never ends. And we continue to come out of our cave over and over and over. It's just, sometimes it's a different cave. We continue to find that enlightenment. And that is, brothers, the reason why I think the hero's journey and the allegory of Plato's cave, in my mind, although they are two separate, distinct things, they just kept butting up against each other in my head. I was like, I just cannot separate the two. And I had to really sit down and meditate on this and think about why the two were so impactful together and why they resonated on a subconscious level with me. They just kept screaming masonry, 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 masonry. And I really had to sit down. And then once I did, I thought, it's really not that complicated. It really was easy to put those pieces together once I started thinking about it. And so I don't think anything I'm sharing with you here is mind-blowing. I don't think anything I'm sharing here is earth-shattering or is going to change your course of life. I just hope maybe I've taken some separate concepts that maybe we've never put together and realized, oh, there's a commonality there that when we link it together, it forms a bigger piece of the puzzle. It helps to link these things. And what I would like to do here, because like I said, this is the first time I've given this presentation, and especially the first time I've given it through Zoom. I've given presentations on the allegory of Plato's cave. I've given presentations on the hero's journey. I've never combined the two. So I really would like to hear your observations and thoughts, because what you're hearing is just my opinion, my thoughts. But maybe it affects you in a different way. Maybe you've had a different insight in this. Maybe you've had a little epiphany. And so I would love for that, if anyone has had that, share that, because that's how we're going to learn. I'd like to learn from you just as much as maybe you've picked up something from me.
Well, as you spoke, if I may jump in, I guess.
Please.
As you spoke, Masonry is a transformational experience. It is a journey from your first initial degrees and becoming a Master Mason. There is and we're hoping that happens with all the people we let in the door, but there is that journey. There is that transformation from being a good man and becoming a better man. We talk about that all the time, about we Masons make good men better men. And along with that comes that hero's journey, comes that transformation of I'm not really that familiar with Plato's closet or Plato's cave, but
yes, Plato came out of the closet. Yes.
Yeah. But that whole,
it was fabulous.
That whole journey, I mean, a big thing right now in Ohio, and I'll share this from our most worshipful Grand Master right now. He has lit a fire in Ohio Masonry right now. His motto this year is "Be legendary." He talks about the esoteric educational aspect of Masonry and making it more of a transformational system instead of just a brotherhood of dinner societies and social gatherings. It's more than that. It is about transformation. It is about changing yourself. It is about learning and educating your own self and being able to share the sacred flame, share that light of Freemasonry with others. I wrote a paper here recently about the sacred flame per se, that talks about that inner spark, that divine spark that's within we believe all men, and whether they react to it or not, and empower themselves with that spark to join the fraternity. And within that fraternity, that spark gets ignited by other brothers, that by their flame, and you continue to grow in your flame and continue to grow in yourself to progress as you go through the degrees and whatnot. And as the Master Mason, you should be able to have educated yourself and been mentored in the ways of the education, the esoterics of Masonry, and also be able then to share and mentor that down to the new brothers coming in the door. But yeah, he's lit a spark right now, and Ohio right now is on fire with the sacred flame of Masonry. I can say that strongly, and it's really been a good few months. Our annuals were in October, where he was elected and installed, and it's really been fun and exciting to watch the brethren just get excited for Masonry again and get excited for esoteric education and learning about that transformational journey that you're trying to allude to as well.
Well, that's exciting, and I appreciate you sharing that. I think some of us had been. Well, I think some of us have been a little concerned in the last few years about Ohio specifically. It seemed to have taken a kind of a weird shift, and I'm very glad to hear that. That sounds like getting things back on the right track. In the entered apprentice degree, at least in my jurisdiction, and I believe Virginia as well, we actually tell the entered apprentice, once he's taken his obligation and we're wrapping up the degree, towards the end, we tell him that Freemasonry is what? We actually define what Freemasonry is. We say it's a beautiful system of morality, veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols. Yep. That is the definition of esoteric. Let me repeat this. That is the definition of esoteric. Veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols. Next time a brother tells me that there's nothing esoteric in Masonry, I'm really going to have to resist the urge not to smack him right across the face. Come on, it's right there. We tell you as an entered apprentice, it's right there. So, Brother Ken, you're raising your hand. Was that a high five? You got something to say? Jump in.
It's both. It's both. So I thought it was interesting. You know, we had there was a diagram there of the hours of the day, so to speak. You know, and I think, you know, in the hero's journey, the idea is, of course, you know, go through from the known to the unknown and back to the known, transformed and so forth. And it also harkens to the archetypes when you talk about, for example, Psychology of the Unconscious, I believe was the name of the book by Jung. He talks about all these stories, whether it's Hermes or whatever. There's someone who gets cast out. They end up oftentimes going to the bottom of the sea, maybe swallowed by some leviathan, and then spit up back on the shores. You know, think Jonah and the whale, right? Well, that's the ambulations of the lodge. I mean, we move through the hours of the day. We rise in the east. We pass through the south, and then we go at the west. We and then enter a time when the sun is below the horizon, and we go through that underwater, under earth. That would be the underworld in terms of Egyptian theology. The idea of the horizons, and that underworld is actually just the opposite side of the celestial motions below the horizon. It's not underground, but it's this other part. But we never talk about the place of darkness. We never talk about passing through the north, when that's truly the dark night of the soul. That's the transformative experience. And in most lodges, that is heralded at the beginning of dusk by the placement of the two pillars. That's the idea of the liminal experience. You know, the limit, the limitation, the idea of the threshold. You know, so the ambulations of the lodge are almost never talked about unless you have a glimpse of understanding the astronomical significance of the motions.
Well, what is the opening and closing ritual of the lodge? That's it. What you just described. That is the opening and closing ritual of the lodge right there. If it's not that important, why do we do it so often? Why do we do it at the beginning and end of every meeting? It is that. It's that liminal space. You could also overlay Campbell's clock right over top of the lodge and follow the opening and closing of the lodge. It works. It works on so many levels. The entered apprentice is being literally brought from darkness to light. That's the reason why our candidates are blindfolded or hoodwinked. It's not to be spooky. It's not to be weird. It's not to be, you know, all eyes wide shutish. It's symbolic, and it's a literal symbolism. We're just, you know, smacking them over the head with this symbolism. So yeah, we are bringing them in every degree. We're bringing them out of a different cave.
Hey,
Whereas,
Matt,
yeah,
if I could interject, here's another thought to spin on this about I've never heard the hero's journey described as being a clock, and I guess I kind of missed that when he started, but then he's like, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, wait, is he saying o'clock? I missed the symbol of the clock there beginning, but it made sense when he's done. Well, the whole point is you're back at 12 o'clock, which is status quo, and you can always take another revolution. So you could say being an entered apprentice is your first journey around the clock, and then the fellow craft, and then the master masons. So when you join the Scottish Rite, that's a whole nother journey you go through, and you're not the same when you're done with that. Going through the Royal Arch, the same thing. Joining a research lodge, writing your first research paper, you're never quite the same after you finish that. So there are many different opportunities of serving as master of a lodge or some other body is another journey in itself. If we think about it, Masonry constantly offers the opportunity to go on yet another journey. And when you come back to where you were, when you step down, you've had your turn as master, and your replacement has been elected and installed. Well, you've completed your journey. You're back to the status quo. You're back to null setting, but you're never quite the same because you just experienced something. So we should always look at Masonry as a constant opportunity to move around that clock individually in our Masonic career.
Yeah, and really, I think that's a good point. Masonry really is circles within circles within circles within circles with overlapping circles, or overlapping clocks. So I look on one level as all 3 degrees forming one clock, because you have this progression from entered apprentice, fellow craft, on around, master mason, boom, 12 o'clock again, and you're now raised to the sublime degree of master mason. I love how we say sublime degree of master mason. But in a way, we're still, when we go out into the world, our friends, our family, our coworker, they're like, it's just Matt, it's just Chris. They don't see anything different. The difference is internal within us. That's the key thing. And so that's one clock. Then you can make smaller clocks, the entered apprentice degree, the fellowcraft degree. Then you have other clocks, which could be your York-Rite degrees and the chapter, the council, commandery. All those can be their own little clocks. Then you have the Scottish Rite, same thing, the consistency. I cannot speak with a sinus infection. I apologize. The consistory, the Lodge of Perfection. All of these are, you take the larger aspect, and then you break it down into these smaller little clocks, and each one of them are their own little beautiful journey. And then whether it's a research lodge, whether it's the shrine, whether it's Rosicrucians, no matter what you're doing, AMD, all of these are these separate journeys, but they all overlap. They all tie back to each other. And it just goes on and on and on. It will go on until you're actually broken, destitute, and can't afford any more dues. That's how far it goes, right? Masonry goes as far as your bank account will allow. But and even with that, just reading. I mean, every time I pick up a book, like I read Wilmshurst, I read Steinmetz, or I read Chuck Dunning, these are all rabbit holes that open up a whole new world, and then it becomes a whole new journey all over again, even though it's Masonry, even though it's something I think I understand. And then I read this perspective, and that's actually, brothers, that's one of the reasons why I love to engage in conversation with you rather than just talk to you. Because when I talk to you, I want to be able to get something out of it myself. I like to engage in that conversation because, like I'm referring to, all of these books, it opens up a whole new perspective of Masonry that I've never thought of. I didn't see that. And oh my goodness, I may not necessarily agree with everything this author says. Like Kirk McNulty, love his work. But do I agree with everything he's put in the way of the craftsman? Not necessarily. Not everything resonates with me there. It's not a big deal. It doesn't mean he's wrong. It means it doesn't resonate with me. But there are things in there that set off little lights in my head. I start going down these rabbit holes, and oh my goodness, now I've experienced Masonry in a whole new way. Or a whole new light, if you will. It just changes things. And now that journey starts all over again for me. So I love where you're going with that. And I agree wholeheartedly that the journey, the clocks, if you will, Joseph Campbell's clocks, it's not one clock. It's infinite. It's infinite. And we continue to come out of caves, a different cave every day, sometimes multiple times a day. It just depends on the experience. It depends on who we're interacting with. It depends on what we're reading. It depends on our meditations and our thoughts. Those things are the things that change us. Those are the things that make us who we are and help develop us as men. That's what I love about research lodges. That's what I love about Masonry, is you find men who are committed to development and growth. And growth only comes with understanding and enlightenment. And enlightenment only comes when you step out of your comfort zone and experience the world around you and open your mind. So all these things are linked together.
I want to call JP there, but So you think about it, it's like, how many different clocks are you currently moving on, and where are you at on each clock? I'm at 3 o'clock right now. I'm at 6 o'clock over here, and I'm almost to 11. I'm almost done with that evolution. So we always have clocks constantly in motion, and they're all at different times.
And what
Go ahead,
happens if we
JP?
synchronize all of our clocks?
Yeah. Well, then you'd be
Only one.
bored. If everything's back at status quo, you're bored. You got to get out there.
Yeah.
Ken, you had a question, or?
Well, yeah, I think there's one distinction between Plato's Cave Hero's Journey and what we do, and I think that distinction is that the hero's journey is done alone. Plato's Cave, it's one man comes back, everybody wants to throw rocks at him, and I think we've all been there too. But the idea is in Freemasonry, we make the journey together. We actually are walking together. We can go back to the mundane world and may get laughed at, but we are not alone outside the cave. And that brings me to, it reminds me of a passage in the one of the letters of St. Paul, where today we see each other as if in a mirror, but then we shall see face to face. And face to face is outside the cave. And I think that's something that we do achieve in a palpable way that makes it so not just easier in the journey, but so much more rewarding than just that isolated knowing something and not being able to tell everybody else the house is on fire,
Yeah. I agree with you, but I'll throw in maybe my little spin on that. I think with Masonry, just as with Plato's Journey, remember not Plato's Journey, I'm getting too mixed up. In the hero's journey, you meet people along the way to assist you with your journey, and they guide you and aid you. They're your brothers in your lodge. We've all been through the same initiatic experience. We're all experiencing the lodge. We're all experiencing Masonry together. But the difference there is we all experience it in our own way. So even though it is a group effort, it really is an individual journey for each of us. So I think there's a dichotomy there. There's a duality or even a plurality there. So yeah, Brother JP, what you said is absolutely 100% on the money. We're all in it together. We've all shared the same initiatic experience, but have we all experienced it the same way? Has it affected us all the same way? And are we all in the same place on our paths? And that goes back to what Worship Brother Chris was saying, is your clock might be at 3 o'clock. My clock might be at 2 o'clock. This brother over here, his clock might be right about twice a day, right? So it just all depends, but we're there to support each other. And that's what makes Masonry so unique. Instead of living like a monastic lifestyle where we just cloister ourselves away with our books and try to focus on ourselves, we work together as brothers. Iron sharpens iron. And so I think on one hand, it is a group journey. On the other hand, it is very much a individual journey of the soul and of yourself.
It's both, and that's part of the thing is like I take issue with the brothers who say, well, I can't, they're almost saying we don't need to bother doing education in lodge because every Mason's supposed to go learning on his own. And it's like, it's true. You'll never really learn anything until you write your own papers and you're doing your own research. But really, just to get you started, every lodge should be offering education on a regular basis because the majority of us, sadly, aren't really motivated to go and learn. So if I educate the guys on the sidelines, at least they learn something. Not every one of us is going to pick up and say, hey, I'm going to go read a book. I'm going to go research, write my own paper. But at least we need to be sharing what we've learned with others, and hopefully that'll spark them to get started on their own. I said earlier, when I write a paper, while I'm researching it, it's like there's always 2 or 3 things I see that's like, oh, put a pin in that. I'll come back to that. Put a pin in that. I'll go back to that. If I'm not sharing with you what's going through my head, you may not get an idea, but you might hear something I say and say, oh, I want to go see about this, going off on a tangent from what's it. We have to constantly share with each other. So yes, you have to do the work, but we should also be constantly sharing with each other. There's no reason we can't be doing both and encouraging both.
That's exactly right. I think that's exactly right.
And along the same lines, I mean, we could all read the same book, but take different interpretations out of it. Same with the Bible. There's multiple things that, I mean, everybody looks at. We watch the news, and if you watch one news, it's one way. If you watch if you do watch a different broadcast, it's completely different. And you look at the one, and you're like, are we even living in the same world?
Yeah.
Because the perspectives are so wildly differently presented. That, and the same thing goes with masonry and education. So, I mean, you can present an education of something that you've invested in, you've written a paper, you're making the presentation, you're presenting a piece, and it's passionate to you, and then you look out in the crowd and half the guys are yawning and like, this is boring shit.
Well, you can't reach everybody with every paper.
Correct.
But
that's that same perspective.
You're absolutely right.
Like, as long as to me, as long as I'm out there still trying to push education and pushing that inspiration, trying to instill that inspiration is more than anything else. What I'm trying to do is to try to encourage the brothers to educate themselves, encourage them to look deeper than the simple face value of learning a ritual or learning what the lectures are. Like when I go to these inspections and everything, I'm currently a district officer, and I'm missing 2 inspections this morning because I'm sitting in the hospital. That's why I'm not on video. But anyway, every time I hear a lecture, I've been a Mason for 6 years now, which is not that long, but I've been a Mason for 6 years. Every time I hear a lecture, I pick up something new. I hear a new word, and I'm like, oh, that's what that means. I'm a full-on York Rite Mason. I'm actually heading all 3 York Rite bodies this year as well. Ooh. And as I'm going through the thing and learning the different parts and everything, even learning the lectures or the esoteric parts of it all, it's like, oh, I made the connection. There was the past master degree where I don't know if anybody's all Royal Arch, whatever, but in the past master degree, one of the people coming in is one of the original 12 Giblites that finds Hiram Abiff. And I never made that connection until we did that degree this year. And I was just like, holy cow. Like there's that connection there. And it encourages me to want to investigate and to learn more and educate myself better. So that way I can share to the brothers that, this really is a really transformational journey, and it really can be interesting. It doesn't have to be just a boring dinner and a business meeting and see you guys in 2 weeks and we'll do this again.
Jason, I will say, if you go to a Zoom meeting like this one, and there are others too, there's plenty of them out there, but we're not special. But if you come to a Zoom meeting like this, everybody sitting here listening wants to be here and wants Masonic education. In a regular lodge, there will be a percentage of brothers who just simply, they're there and they'll be polite and they'll listen, but it's not really their thing, and that's fine. You may reach some of them. That's where we bring out new research nerds, is exposing them in education, and they say, oh, on their own, they get inspired. You get them fired up. But that's what I like about these sort of groupings, research lodges and these kind of Zoom meetings. You're speaking to the people who are they've already made another iteration around the clock. They're interested in Masonic education and learning more on their own. So it's easier to reach the people in this room than to reach the people in your lodge. It doesn't mean you don't stop talking to both of them, but just that's what I like about this is I can say something. It bothers me to give a talk and I wait for questions and no one asks anything. It's like, say something. But here, I've been to some of these where we've gone for an hour or more after the presentation was over and the conversation between the brothers. I'm just like, okay, I'm just driving the bus. Y'all talk. I'll just let y'all go. And that's even more interesting is the back and forth, because all of us have done some research. We all know a little bit about this, a little bit about that, and we add something to the mix that even the presenter's like, oh, wow, I hadn't even thought of that. So that's what's the beauty of these kind of Zoom meetings is all the nerds getting together and sharing their thoughts.
And I've wanted to join a lot more of these than I have. I've been on a couple of them with you guys, and I've always enjoyed them. because
good.
it is interesting. A lot of times you have the presenters, whatever, and I find that stuff interesting, and I enjoy the papers that you're sharing through the Virginia Research Lodge email system, whatever you're doing there.
Yep.
And yeah, I'm encouraged by overall the spark of Masonry being fired up right now, and I really.
They're all on YouTube, so feel free to watch them and share them with people. You want to share it on social media, whatever you all want to do, please share them, tell people about them. But I make a point of uploading all of these to YouTube, and I edit them slightly, just take out the fluff at the beginning where it's like, yeah, can you connect, unmute. I cut most of that out, but and some of those conversations before we even get to the speaker are actually really interesting, because I throw something out just to stir the pot and get people talking, or I ask a question and we go around for 20 minutes and people answering the question, like, how big should a lodge be? Should we be 30 members or 200? So it's like, you never know what's going to spark something. But that's why I make it available on YouTube for people to go back later. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe sometime in the future. But it's better to be in one of these meetings and get a chance to interact than to watch them afterwards. It's always better, because you can ask the speaker directly. And we get almost no comments on YouTube. I don't know why. We get views, but very little people comment. I'm always willing to carry on the thread there. People talk on YouTube, but they generally don't. It is what it is. And it's still a new medium. We're still figuring it out, and we'll probably be different 5 years from now than we are right now. I'm just constantly innovating and trying to figure out what works. But what we're doing is working, and I'm happy with it. I mean, we're doing good things.
One thing that's funny, Worship Brother Chris, since you mentioned that, there are many times where I've given presentations in lodges, and it sounded like crickets.
Mm-hmm.
No one had any questions, no one had any comments. I thought, man, were they even listening, or did I just not get the point across, or maybe what I had to say was not that interesting. Really wasn't sure how to feel about that. And then once we closed the lodge, suddenly I'm surrounded by a bunch of brothers wanting to talk about this topic. And I was, okay, when we opened it up for questions and answers, where was all of this?
Right.
But what I get from that, I've learned not to really take that too personally anymore, because a lot of times they're sitting there thinking about what you just said. They're trying to formulate questions, or it just takes them a little while to digest what they just heard. And then once the lodge closes, suddenly all these questions that they should have had 20 minutes ago now come flooding their minds. And, there was a lodge recently, I say recently, back in the fall. I walked out of that lodge at about 1 a.m.
Mm.
The lodge closed at 9:30 p.m. I didn't walk out until 1 a.m. because of all of the questions they had. And I thought, well, thank goodness you didn't answer all these questions during the lodge, because we'd still be
right
in lodge right now. So it happens. And so, and this applies to any brothers. If you give a presentation to lodge and you don't get an immediate reaction from the brothers, do not take it personally. It may be that they're just sitting there mulling over what you just presented to them. Maybe there was something there that they just don't know exactly how to react to it in that moment, because it's something, maybe a new piece of information, new enlightenment. You've just dragged them out of their cave.
Right.
They're trying to adjust to the light. Give them a minute. That's what it is. Yeah.
Ken?
Yeah, it's funny because I asked. I've had the same deer in the headlights look. It really depends on the audience too. I have lodges where people have stood up and applauded, and lodges where people are talking about committing acts of violence against themselves if they have to sit through it again. So, but I talked to Piers Vaughn. I don't know how many people know who that is. He wrote a number of books, including the materials for Royal Arch that are being used in across multiple jurisdictions now. And I asked him. I said, what was his experience? How did he get people involved? He said at his own lodge, and he's a pretty dynamic speaker with a lot of amazing esoteric knowledge and so forth. He said it took 2 years. He said the first year, barely a peep or anything, but even the old timers who came there for Limburgers and cheese, if you do it consistently enough, long enough, people start asking questions and it'll become part of lodge culture. But like most things in life, we quit just before we win.
Good point.
True.
Carter, did you have anything to add? Or I want to make sure everybody else gets a chance to chime in with a little something. Or
No, I did. Excuse me. I did find it very interesting. I'd never seen that connection between those two things that the Plato's Cave and the hero's journey. So I did find it really interesting. I always liked tuning into yours. One of my favorites was your one on chamber reflection, where you talked about that exercise you did in lodge where people went in by themselves. That was really interesting.
Oh, thank you.
I am curious. I do watch a lot of these on YouTube. And I was just wondering, Chris, do you have by chance a listing of all the YouTube videos you have out?
well, there is a playlist. What I share takes you to the new channel, and there's a playlist. There's actually two playlists. One is Unstated Meetings Uncut, which is all of them, and then there's a second one. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the. I normally put that in the chat. Give me one sec. The YouTube, I'm going to put it in the chat here. The YouTube channel is for the Research Lodge. That's where this is now. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. But if you go there, there's two playlists. There's, I think, three now. One playlist is Unstated Meetings Uncut, which is all of them from the beginning, and they're all like an hour to 2 hours long. I've started trimming them down, and that's in the Unstated Meetings playlist. There's probably only like 5 or 6 in there because I have to go in, rewatch the video, and trim them down. In some cases, I've cut them into like 15-minute sections. I'm trying to divvy them up to get more people to check out because people have a shorter attention span. But really, that takes a lot of work, so I haven't gotten very far. So the uncut list has all of them. And so, and they're all there. I'm thinking at some point of doing some kind of a category, coming up with some kind of thing, putting on the website or something, or on Facebook that says, here's all the ones about alchemy, here's all the ones about Kabbalah, and kind of try to categorize them a little, because honestly, we've got 300 papers that I've put out in the Research Lodge that I've published over the years. And I started from number 1 just to buy me some breathing room so I could put it out every week, because there's time invested in, for 5 years, every week for 5 years, I've read a paper, scanned a paper, edited it slightly, written a little summary of it, and published it. That takes work. And I wanted to give myself a break and be like, I'm going to start again with number 1, because some people haven't seen them all. And honestly, it's easier just to pull one that's already been done. I just have to copy paste. I don't have to reread it, whatever. So I'm resharing those, but also they're all of them have categories and keywords assigned to them. So if you go look on the website, you can search by a George Washington, or you can search by historical, biography, whatever. Part of that was for a Grand Lodge effort, which going on 4 years has not gotten off the ground, but I was told 4 years ago, you will put all this in the Grand Lodge repository. And I say, as soon as you build it, I will be happy to do it. But it's been 4 years and they haven't built something yet. So I say, well, in the meantime, here's Virginia Research Lodge's repository. I've got ones from all the other research lodges. They're all here. They're categorized, they're grouped. Check them out. So my point is, I want to go back and look at the YouTube, because honestly, of those 300 papers, there's about maybe 50 that are really, really, really good and everyone should see. And a lot of them are, but I publish them. Of the YouTube content, I would say, honestly, 80 to 90% of them, everyone should see them. The content that is brought up in these unstated meetings is better, in my opinion, than almost every research paper I've read or I've written. The topics are just mind-blowing. It's things that you don't hear even in a research lodge. Do we talk about Kabbalah in a research lodge? Do we talk about it in Scottish Rite, even though supposedly the Kabbalah is an essential part of the 4th degree? We talk about all that. For some reason, these YouTube, these unstated meetings bring out topics, stuff I've never even heard of. And I'm like watching Chartres Cathedral, and they got talking about ley lines, and there are certain points around the world that have a higher energy. Really, off the wall stuff that's almost Bigfoot, UFO, crystals, ESP kind of stuff. I don't know, but they present them logically, and it's like, here's this, and this is here, and the cathedral, you're in this room, and you look down, you see this big sundial down there, and this ties to that, and you go to this place 1,000 miles away, and you see the same thing. But I don't know. It's well researched. So I need to categorize the YouTube videos, I think, and so people can go and I want to drive more people to go and watch these things. And part of it might be cutting it up into 15-minute blocks to get more attention. I don't know. But I just wish I could. The only thing I wish I could do is promote these better so more people will go and watch them, because I honestly believe they're worth it. Not for anything I'm saying, but just for my speakers. For this guy here on my screen, and all the other guys. You guys bring some amazing content, and I'm just privileged to be just the guy vamping in front of the mic and putting you in front of everybody else. Y'all do the hard work, not me.
You just need to come up with like some catchy thumbnails to catch the viewer's eyes. That's the ticket.
Here's the thing. I mean, honestly, guys, and I'll tell you, my son has done some YouTube videos. My son has a video that has 10,000 hits. My son, when he was like 15, made a YouTube video about some artist, some rapper, and he just critiqued his album or something, and he got like 10,000 hits. And he's not even doing it now. And I'm like, wait, you cracked the code. But I don't know, if I had come across YouTube when I was maybe 10 years younger and had the energy to go and invest myself in becoming a YouTuber, I think it's something I could capture. But honestly, I've invested my time in my career, and that's where my money's coming from, so I rely on that because it's more stable. But really, there is some magic about YouTube, but the sad thing is the least meaningful content gets the most reactions and gets the most hits and makes the most money. And they're 5-minute videos, and I watch a lot of them, and I love them, and they're entertaining as all get out. I could list all the people that I watch regularly, but they're short videos and they're very entertaining, and you watch one and you're like, that's cool, and it gets thousands, millions of hits. The stuff I'm sharing is deep, and it's esoteric, and it's intellectual, and it's thought-provoking, and it's about Masonry, and everyone should see it, and it's an hour to 2 hours long, and hardly anybody's going to watch it. So I'm fitting a very niche audience, but I don't know how to put these down in 5-minute bits to attract more attention. I don't know. Maybe I need to get somebody else involved who will help edit them and make them more consumable. Or maybe I just need to have people like Matt go write me a 5-minute paper and start doing it that way. I don't know. Because I like the long format. I like you talking for an hour and we're all like totally into you talking. But it's the format. I mean, I don't know. I don't have all the answers yet. I'm still working on it.
Now, I'll tell you how the YouTubers who are like hitting hundreds of thousands of views and the ones that are really making it out there, they take a soundbite, maybe a 30-second soundbite out of a video, put that into one of the YouTube shorts, and then if that catches somebody's attention, then they go to the channel and watch the full video.
Ah, okay.
There you go. But hey, brothers, and Chris, I have enjoyed this so much. I apologize. I do have to run. I actually have to go to the lodge. I'm meeting a candidate right now to meet him for lunch, go over his petition with him, and hopefully we'll be voting on him soon and initiating him. So I told him I'd meet him shortly. So I apologize for having to jump off here, but I have enjoyed it, and it's always such a pleasure to speak for the Virginia Lodge of Research. It's always... Honestly, I'll leave you with this. I probably get more out of this than maybe you do. Just the feedback and what you share and what I hear from you just really inspires me and drags me out of my cave. Right.
Well, yeah,
so I love
that's the secret that people don't understand. We get more out of writing these papers than people even understand, and being able to present it and share what we've learned. It's like, y'all need to be doing this. Y'all need to be writing papers, because that's where you really learn this stuff, is writing it down and researching it. But I'm always happy to share. And I appreciate you being one of my regulars. You've been a constant, been on 3-4 times, I think, and even came in person one time.
Yeah.
So we'll do it again that time. But thank you, Matt. And I can't announce my next meeting because I'm not lined up yet. It'll be in February. But please like and subscribe if you're watching me on YouTube a couple months from now. So thank you, Matt. Anybody else got anything before we break?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And Chris, I just want to give you a thumbs up for all you do for this group. It's pretty amazing. And those of us who follow you on a regular basis, I haven't been here in a while, but I always find these very worthwhile. And Brother Matt, I haven't seen you in a while. I just ended my tenure as secretary of Prometheus here in North Carolina.
Congratulations! How did you manage that?
Hey,
that's a life sentence.
I'm not giving my secrets out.
So let me ask you, Chuck, who is the unfortunate victim now?
Clint Green.
Oh, you're kidding me!
No,
I was just texting with Clint last night. He didn't tell me he's now the secretary. He just got out of the East, and now he's secretary.
Yep.
God,
that's what they do.
Sucker for punishment.
I'd like to know why Brother Kurt has a mug that says Buffalo, New York. I'm just curious now.
My stepson lives there.
Oh, whereabouts?
Take care, Matt.
He's in West Seneca, actually. So just
I live in Buffalo, 2 blocks from West Seneca.
Oh, really? Yeah, he's been out there about 8 years now. So
wow,
we get out there 2-3 times a year, I guess. So yeah.
Is he a brother?
He is not. I have not been able to get that pass that along just yet.
Well, if you want him invited to anything interesting in our area, I got the hookup. So
okay. Hey, well, I appreciate that.
No problem.
All right. Well, it was so good. Thank you all for attending. We're going to go and wrap it up. It's 11:20 my time. So this is a good talk. I really enjoyed everybody coming out. Thank you all. And I'll see you all soon. Like I said, about at least one a month for this year, but I plan to be traveling a lot more. So I'm not going to have as many as I did last year. I'd rather go there in person and visit some of my other research lodges. So y'all take care. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you all soon. Bye, everyone.
Have a good one.